The end times, when? I can't. It's gonna be sometime. Found it. The end times. I know when it'll happen. It says it'll happen in January 1st, the year 2000. Wait. What?
The heck? That's stupid. What the? It can't be. That's already happened. So, the question on today's episode of Ask Caedmon is, are we in the end times? The answer to that, short, yes, but not in the way you think. Let me explain. So, the end times. What are the end times? Well, you may be referring to the book of Revelation, where it explains a lot of details of like some crazy stuff happening, frankly, like something about trumpets and beasts, animals, things, like goofy stuff that you're asking yourself, are we in the end times? And to put it quite frankly, we've been in the end times since Jesus, after he rose from the dead, hung out with his disciples for a little bit, and then rose into the heavens. We've been in the end times since that moment. That apocalyptic timer that Jesus set has been ticking ever since then and is still ticking. We just don't know when it's gonna go off. Now, some of you asked me, Caedmon, do you think we're in the end times? Because like all this goofy stuff is happening and whatnot, and it's been crazy, like, you know, like there's fires everywhere, and there's governments are falling around the world, and we got this pandemic, and even if you were to say, like, sure, all those things are said in Revelation, but you have to remember, these like things have been happening probably together for centuries. We're just more aware of it now because we have like news and social media. Whereas in the 1600s, they would have had no idea what's happening over there, right? They would have had no idea that an earthquake is happening at the same time that place is on fire, and over here there's like a virus that's killing people, and then over there there's war, right? They wouldn't have known that. They would have just known what's happening in their little pocket. But now we're just so aware of what's happening everywhere that it's very easy for us to be like, yep, this is it. We're dead. We're dead. We're dead. We're dead. We're dead. We're dead. That's a Treasure Planet reference for all you 90s kids. Jesus actually tells us that we can't predict it in the book of Matthew. Chapter 24, verse 36 says, however, no one knows the day or the hour when these things will happen. Not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. And this, Jesus is saying this just after telling his disciples about what the end times will look like, vaguely. And so giving some like quick descriptions, not as in-depth as the book of Revelation, but just giving some quick details on what that'll look like. But then also saying at the end, listen, you will never know when this is gonna happen, and you'll never be able to predict it. So like, good luck. We're called not to, like, we're not supposed to try. However, that hasn't stopped some people for trying. There's been a lot of predictions, and I mean a lot of predictions of when the world was gonna end. Granted, the disciples probably thought Jesus was gonna come back tomorrow, the minute when he rose into heaven. They probably thought he was gonna be there for breakfast, and then probably were sitting there like, it's been like a week since he left, right? Maybe we should actually like do something. That's most likely how that conversation went. But there's been other people to predict some people that you may even know who have tried to predict the end of the world. I'll give you some examples. Christopher Columbus, he was one of them, surprisingly enough. He had a book of prophecies, and he predicted that the world would end in the year 1656. Clearly he was wrong. Y2K, ask your parents about that one. Wild. It was so goofy, all because people thought that a computer wasn't able to change the date. Boy, were they wrong. Heck, 2013, some guy tried to predict it because math of how many fish the disciples had caught on a certain day in a certain chapter on a certain verse, and if you subtract and divided you know what I mean? Like, did the math, like computing. Bam! May 21st, 2013. And you read that now, you're like, wait, what? So he was wrong too. And of course, there's been plenty of people to say, hey, yo, this year kind of whack. Maybe this is the world ending, which it's probably not. It's a good chance it's not going to. Just because it just seems like a lot right now, right? Like I said, because we just have more access and we just know what's happening around the world more than people would have in the past. We have to remember also that if you're reading the book of Revelation, there's a lot of stuff going on in there that's really symbolic to the time. So around when the time the book of Revelation was being written, it was being written as a letter to the early church at that time. This was during a time when Christians were being persecuted by the Roman government under the orders of Emperor Nero, who was like persecuting and killing Christians, like hunting them down, trying to get rid of them. And so the book of Revelation is meant to be seen as a letter of hope to these Christians, like, hey, like times are tough now, but in the end, like our rewards are like above anyone's imagination. Even though like it's okay to be afraid of what's happening, but we shouldn't be afraid of what happens to us after. We shouldn't lose faith, because having faith is so much more important, so much more rewarding in the end. So just like it was a letter of hope to the early Christians, it's still a letter of hope to us today, despite all the fires and pandemic and wars and stuff. And although like it may seem grim, having faith is so important. Even if this was the end, which I mean, it's probably not, we shouldn't be afraid, because God has promised us that no matter how difficult it gets, that those who remain faithful will be with him in paradise and will be gifted with eternal life. So yeah, hopefully that answers any questions you may have had about the end times of the book of Revelation. And so this has been Ask Caedmon. Next week is our last one, so big sad. Thanks for watching this episode of Ask Caedmon, and I'll see you in the next one.